Welcome to Happy Homes and Gardens. I'm your host. My name is Daphne Royse. I am a real estate broker, architecture, and interior designer. Quilts make people feel warm and cozy, and their colorful patterns add richness to life. Sandi is the founder of the Rogers Lane Studio and is master of textile artwork. She can magically transfer fabric into Mexico folk culture stories. Good morning, Sandi.
Hello, Daphne. How are you?
Doing well. How about you?
Very good. And thank you for having me today. I'm so excited.
You have a very colorful studio. Please tell us what you do and who you are.
Yes. So welcome to the colorful world of Rogers Lane Studios. I am a textile artist. So I take fabric and I transform it into beautiful pieces of art.
How did you come out with the Rogers Lane Studio?
So Rogers Lane is the street that I grew up on in Northern California. I grew up on a ranch in the countryside of Northern California, and we spent hours and days. I have a big family. There's 8 of us, siblings, and we spent hours outside and playing. And Rogers Lane was the street that I grew up on.
You say you have 8 siblings?
Yes, 8 siblings. I know it's unbelievable, but we managed. I should say my mom managed, and the love of my art really was inspired by my mother. I mean, she was always very handy, cooking, doing all sorts of handicrafts, and I, from a very small age, really took to working with my hands.
Are your siblings all as artistic like you?
In different ways, but no, I think I got more of my mother's, the more of the love of her handicrafts. As I said, just from an early age, I can remember at the age of 6, we wanted to make my mother a Mother's Day present, and we ended up just gathering like fabrics, upcycled fabrics, and we made her a really pretty pillow. And I just remember at the time, we didn't even have scissors, pink, and so we had the old-fashioned razor blades, if anybody remembers those. And that's how we were cutting the fabric. And I just remember as I was cutting, I cut my little pinky, and it literally, I still can see the scar. It's a little scar because it was really deep. And but I think my siblings are creative in a different way.
So it sounds like your mother has a big influence on your artwork today.
Yes. So a lot of the colors that you see in my work, my parents were immigrants from Mexico. And so I love all that bright color. And I just have a great affinity to that color and to that kind of folk art whimsy style.
How do you come out with those beautiful Mexico stories?
Well, a lot of it is from just, it's all in my head. It's on my head. And again, my work is very whimsical. I don't want to, I like my work to inspire joy and happiness. I want you, when you look at it, I want you to I want it to put a smile on your face. And so a lot of times, I spend a lot of time outside. I spend a lot of time just being inspired by nature. And I have, a lot of my work is, I do a lot of women. And I think women, are so strong. I have lots of girlfriends and my siblings, right? I have 4 sisters and my mom, and just all of them are so beautiful and strong in their own way. And so a lot of my work follows probably a visit. I go visit my sisters, or I go on a walk with a girlfriend, or lunch, and we talk about certain things. And then all of a sudden I come home and I'm like, okay, I want to bring out the beauty of whatever we talked about into my artwork.
It sounds like you have a lot of story with the female figures. What are your usually topic based on?
So basically just I love flowers, and I love the beauty of nature. So I'm always a lot of my work has florals and the beautiful whimsy pictures. Like I had done a couple of series. I work in series. So I had gone to the museum, and I went to the San Francisco Botanical Gardens, and I came back, and I had such a wonderful experience. So I had to draw upon that, and I was inspired to do a little series of small art pieces that depicted that day. And I added butterflies and birds to the pieces.
Sounds like the natural give you inspirations about your ideas on your artwork.
Yes, but when I translate them into my work, to my style, again, it's very whimsical and fun. I want to just bring out the whimsy in each of with my work.
Okay. And what are your challenge in creating your stories?
So probably time. We only have a certain amount of time every day, and I really try to devote most of it. And as you can see, my studio is a working studio. It's not, it's messy because it's like I'm a chef in the kitchen, right? Like things are all over the place because I'm working on several projects at a time. Just because sometimes, right, I get to a point in one of the projects that I'm like, oh, I'm not sure which direction to go. And so I leave it for a day or two, and hopefully I will get more inspiration and come back to it. And so I do work on different projects at a time. So my studio is a working studio. And I think those are probably time, and just, sometimes I get, a creative block, and those are probably my biggest hurdles.
What is a working studio?
So a working studio is just, it's messy. It's not like picture perfect, right? Like you see in the magazines where everything has its little space. I am organized, but like I said, as you can see, like I got bolts of fabric here. I got some other projects here. So, and then I have my desk here that is probably the most organized, because I need to make sure that I keep, my daily calendar is always up to date. And so, so that's why when people they'll say, oh, I want to see your studio, right? And I have to preface everything by saying it's a working studio. Don't expect, picture perfect magazine cover.
What sizes are your artwork?
So it really varies, but again, we all are normal people. We don't live in galleries. And so my art is made for a regular person, so that their wall space, right? We don't all have huge wall spaces. And so I would say that typically my artwork is probably anywhere from like 32 height wise to maybe like 28. I have done bigger pieces, but generally my sizes are anywhere from like 32 to like 28.
That's inches, right?
Inches, yes.
Okay. And how long does it take you to create each artwork?
That really, it varies, because again, I may have an idea, and I usually start my art by sketching out certain things. I sketch out what I'm really thinking about, right? And from there, it is, I take it to fabric. I choose my color palette, but sometimes I can, finish, I can start and finish a piece within like 3 days. Other days, some days I've done a piece of art in one day, but I've literally been in my studio for about 10 hours.
So that actually takes quite a long time just from creating to finish.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is, because you have to carefully, right? And then of course you're working, sometimes I work with a machine and something goes wrong with that, or I, accidentally mess up, I have to remove all the stitches and go back to square one.
Do you have a special meanings for each artwork?
So I do title each of my pieces. And so I try to title them with fun titles that are catchy.
Do you have a titles on each artwork that you maybe sew on?
Sometimes I do embroider some words on some of the pieces. I did a series of like angels, and I embroidered, bless, words that were meaningful to the pieces.
And how do you source your textile materials?
So I do use commercial fabrics along with some upcycled and vintage linens, and it really just whatever catches my eye. During COVID, I purged my whole closet, right? We had a lot of time, so I went through all my closet and I spent a couple hours like trying on clothes, like to see if I really liked them. And there was a lot of clothing that I had that I would never wear again, but the fabrics were so beautiful. So during that time, I decided, you know what, I'm going to like actually take the fabric from my clothing, and I made several quilts. And they're actually really beautiful.
What is a commercial fabric?
So commercial fabrics are high quality. I use high quality cotton quilting fabrics, and there's, believe it or not, I mean, maybe a lot of people, the general population does not know, there's actually fabric designers that actually design beautiful pieces of fabric. Some of my favorite designers, and that's what they do for a living. Some of my favorite designers is Kay Fassett. He does beautiful florals. Anna Maria Horner, she also has florals, but she has just, I love her color palette. Kathy Doherty, she's out of Australia. There's just so many. I do. So I like going back to my favorite designers because I just love their style and their color palette.
You mentioned one was from Australia, but the other two are in US.
The other two are US, but you can still find their fabrics online or through high quality quilt shops.
Do we have a lot of quilt shops around here?
Unfortunately not so many in the Bay Area, but they're spread out throughout. There's a few, and I do sometimes just directly go online to each of those, my favorite designers, and I just purchase fabric from them. But I also I upcycle a lot of fabric. I wash it, and I use a lot of upcycled fabric as well.
And what kind of technical skills do you need to create textile artwork?
So I wasn't trained as an art. I didn't go to art school, although I wish I would have, right? I I learned to sew from a very young age, but I've taken, I've taken numerous courses on design and color. And I've always been very crafty. So I really think all those years of my, when I was bringing up my kids, all those years really trained my eye to do what I can do now. And so I embroider, I know how to use sewing machine, I quilt, I do a lot of handy stitches. I think you just need you just need to be creative. Basically, it's not hard, but learning, sometimes just learning, it's taken me a very long time for me to figure out what looks right. And so now it's easy, but it did take me a long time, years of practice. And you know what they say, you're an expert once you have devoted, like, what is it, like 10,000 hours or something like that. I think I can check that off.
Wow, that's a lot of hours to invest.
Mhm.
What are the differences between sewing and quilting?
So sewing is basically sewing two pieces of fabric together and seaming it. So garments are sewn. That's how a garment is constructed. Quilting is actually sandwich. So it's a top layer of fabric and a middle layer of, could be a wool batting, it could be felt, and then another piece of fabric underneath. So it's a sandwich, and then you quilt on top of it. So basically, when you quilt, it's dimensional, and it brings out the beauty of all the stitches.
Basically, on the top and the bottom look the same.
Similar, right? You could have the same fabrics, the same thread color, but sometimes, you could mix it up, use a different thread color on the top and use a different thread color on the bottom.
Do you use special tools?
So I have several different machines. I use a domestic machine. And then I also have back here, this other big machine there is a long arm. I use a Bernina long arm machine. And that, oh my God, it's so much easier quilting on that machine because it also has a digital computer attachment to it. So you could do your own design, but it also has a digital component to it. And so makes it a little easier.
I saw behind you, there's a bulletin board with so many pieces of art there. Is that how you create your art?
So I do create on a design wall. So this is my design wall, and these are two of the pieces that I'm working on, and one that I completed at the end there. But I work up on a design wall, and so I pin my fabric, and then I work out the pieces that way. And so I can actually, when it's up on a design wall, it just helps your eye make sure that things are flowing correctly.
That's before you sew or quilt everything together.
That's before. So I usually cut things out. Sometimes I sew two pieces of fabric together to make the background. I pin it up there, and then I kind of move pieces around to see what looks better.
So how do you know the piece is finished design? When it's going to
when it's
satisfy your eyes?
I sketch a lot of my work out first, right? So I tend to make sure that my sketch is what I really want. I finish my sketch first, right? And then once I transpire all of that, the sketch onto the fabrics, I'm pretty much, once I can put the finished touch at the very end, but it's done when I have the sketch. So I do the sketching first, and then when I'm satisfied with the sketch, then that's when I go to choosing my fabrics, my color palette, and then that's when it goes onto the design board.
Do you remember how many pieces of artwork you have created so far?
It's been probably in the hundreds.
Wow.
Some, right, some have sold, some are still like weren't exactly what I was envisioning, and so I put them away, and then later they come back out and I redo them again. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot of pieces. And I actually tend to do a lot of pieces for my girlfriends, right? Because at the age that we are, it's just a nice little warm gift that they can use it for a little sometimes the pieces that I make are small enough that they can use for a placemat. So every year I give them another one so that they can have a little set.
They are washable, right?
The ones that I make for placemats are washable, but most of my artwork is not washable. So it's not meant to be thrown in the wash. It is a piece of art and it's meant to be on the wall.
Okay, so they basically need to be hung on the wall. Do they normally put in a frame?
I don't think you need to hand wash them. I think if you get a stain on them, I usually take a little makeup wipe, the makeup wipes, and I just go and clean it off in that matter. And it does the trick. So they don't really need to be thrown in the wash.
I understand you have a quilting classes.
I do. So I do have some quilting classes that I do here at my studio, and it's a small group. I have my website, and if people sign up for my newsletter, they'll get information about it. I'm really ramping the classes up coming up in 2023.
Okay, and that's a regularly offer to the students?
It is. So it'll be regularly offered probably I'm hoping, as busy as I am, I'm hoping that I'm trying to get classes in a workshop at least once a month.
Okay, and where is your studio?
So my studio is just right in the back of my house. So it's pretty easy for me to get here to work.
What kind of students are interested to do the sewing and quilting?
So, usually there are people that want to learn, that want to do a piece of work for themselves. I mean, there's a lot of enjoyment and finishing, starting a piece of artwork and finishing it, and that you can say that you made it, right? So, so I think people that just want to broaden their creative side, make a piece of art for themselves or a friend, anybody that loves fabric and color. I have a workshop that I do on a regular basis. It's called Fabulous Florals, and it's a beautiful, you end up with a beautiful piece of art that is forever flowers. So it's you create your own vase and you do your own flowers, and it's just a beautiful piece to hang in any place of your home.
Do they sign up individual classes, or there's a series of classes?
So it's a series. So it's a workshop. So I'll put out a workshop date, like say, on a Saturday and so that's the date that unless somebody says to me, hey, I have 6 people that are interested in taking your workshop. Are you able to accommodate us? And I will do my best to accommodate you and have a class for your group.
Do you have a different levels, skills for different classes?
No, I mean, I think any beginner can take my class. You don't have to be a prolific sewer or a prolific quilter. You just want to be creative. All you need is to be creative.
And do you have any advice that you would like to pass on to young artists?
I really think that just never give up. I knew from a really young age that I wanted to be an artist, but I just didn't really know how to get there, right? My family, we had a big family, and my parents immigrated here from Mexico. So really, we didn't have the luxuries of me trying to experiment, right? I needed to make sure that when I left home that I was responsible for myself. And so I chose a career that I knew that I was going to be able to support myself, right? But all along, yeah, I had my sewing machine. When I was in college, I had my sewing machine. I was always sewing, doing all sorts of projects, and also learning, because I didn't know exactly what kind of art I wanted to do or what kind of artist I wanted to be. But honestly, looking back, right, my first love was always fabric, and I probably should have just gone and kept that path. And I strayed away from it. So I did, for so long I painted, I did jewelry, but really after I used to get bored from doing that, and then I would go back to fabric, right? And so I think if I would have just stuck to fabric my whole entire life, I mean, who knows where I would have been now. But I just, and I think it's important for you to write down your goals every year and where you want to be, because of course, right, things don't automatically happen, and you have to be able to be okay sharing what you do, even if you don't think it's great work, but you have to be able to do that. And the sooner you can learn to do that, the better, because it took me a long time to get to where I'm at and comfortable talking about who I am and what kind of art I do and what I like. So that is the advice I give to anybody that wants to pursue anything, because you're never too old to pursue what you're really intended to be, what you really intended to be in this world, right?
So Sandy, you mentioned that your parents were from Mexico. Have you visited Mexico yourself?
I do want to visit. When we were little, we went to my parents' hometown, but I don't really remember so much. I do want to take a trip out there and take my daughters and my husband and kind of explore a little more. I haven't even been to Mexico City, which I would love to go to and explore that city a little more.
So do you actually read or study any Mexico stories?
I do. I love Mexican art, right? I love it. I loved all the folk art. A lot of my work also too, I love making Frida. If anybody knows who Frida Kahlo is, she's become really iconic now. But I do enjoy making art that is inspired by Frida.
But your work is very different than Frida's. You are all about profession, the form, the beautiful, the landscaping. But Frida is very dramatic, I will put it this way.
Yeah, she is very dramatic, yes. But I love adding a lot of my art that has the Fridas, of course, right? The big eyebrows, and I love a lot of the flowers. And so I love working. I'm inspired a lot by Frida as well, because a lot of my pieces are Frida based.
All right. I can't wait to see more of your artwork. So Sandy, do you sell your artwork?
I do. So every piece that I make is for sale. If I post it on my Instagram, and if you DM me and let me know that you're interested, I would be happy to make an appointment, and we can go over the details. The other thing is my website, I'm going to revise it in the coming year. So I will have a lot of my quilts on my website for sale.
Do you ever get a special request from people? They want a certain artwork, but they want you to create it for them.
I have done commission work, and I'm happy to do that as well. But commission work is always a little tricky because it really has to fit into my schedule. And so I know sometimes that's difficult for the other party because they want it at a certain time. But I do commission work, and I'd be happy to take requests as well.
Great. So you basically lay out the preliminary for the design and
Usually
get approval?
I have a questionnaire, like, we talk, I interview them and we talk about what they're looking for. It really, the other thing with commission work, it has to be, I mean, you have to like what I do and what my color palette, because I really don't, I work so that it's a pleasant experience for me as well, right? So I choose you, I interview you, and you tell me what you want, and from there we move on. But I use my own color palette, I'll make up my own design, and we go from there.
Great.
Yeah, so I have my website, and I am on Instagram. I post a lot on my Instagram, although I haven't posted lately. I'll probably do something today or this week, but around the holidays, it's just hard, right? Because you're trying to, it's just even less time in the day. But I do have my website, rogerslanestudios.com, and then my Instagram handle is Rogers Lane.
Great. I will also link that to video so people can
Wonderful.
find you. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Daphne.
You're welcome. Well, thank you very much, Sandi, for your time today. And I can tell you how much I enjoy your artwork and all the beautiful, colorful artwork you created.
Oh, thank you. Again, it's such a love for me.
Well, you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne. You too. Blessings.